Hi, and welcome to Simplify Your Paper COVID edition. We're live today with Kathy Bates from Practical Solutions. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We are going to talk today about how to simplify your paper, how to get rid of paper, and then find what you're looking for when you need it. So I want to tell you all a quick story about one home we did. It was the most paper I'd ever seen in a home. It was a 3,000 square foot house filled with newspapers, magazines, just about anything you could think of. We actually filled up 5 40-yard roll-off dumpsters, which are the size of the back of a truck, with paper. The person finally realized that it was a fire hazard and they needed to get rid of it. They were never going to get around to reading it. But like many of us, we, get in a newspaper and we say, oh, I didn't get to finish it all. So we set it aside to finish it later. Well, there's good information in there, yes, and we want to finish it. But if we keep accumulating those papers like this couple did, they had probably about 40, 50 years worth of newspapers in their home. They were never going to catch up on all that reading. So for something like newspapers, it is best to read it, and the next day it's old news. So get rid of it and start again on the next days. But this house was filled with so much newspapers. And of course we had to go through it with a fine-tooth comb because you never know what you're going to find when you're going through newspapers. In another house, we found $7,000 cash hidden in the newspapers that probably the family would have come along and just thrown away. But we went through it and were able to find that cash. So papers are a problem for everyone. If you think you're alone in this, you're not. Papers pretty much are a problem in every home we organize. So don't feel bad, and at least it's probably not as bad as the person I just described. So we're going to, during the COVID time, we hopefully have a little bit more time than we normally would. Maybe we're not commuting, sitting in traffic for hours every day. Maybe we're not running kids around to activities or going to our own events. We have a little bit more time in our day, at least we should. So we're going to think about taking that hour or two you have a day and starting to sort through those papers. So if you would, I love for you to be interactive during this presentation. I love to hear what you're thinking. We're going to ask some questions. Please join right in and let us know what you think, because that helps me as the presentation develops, make sure I address all the needs you have. So first question is, do you prefer paper or paperless? So some people prefer a filing system, paper that they can physically touch when they need it. Other people prefer paperless system. So they want everything on their computer. They can easily find it there when they're looking for it. It's less clutter. So both are legitimate options. So think about whether you would prefer paper or paperless. So we're going to talk about how to get rid of paper. And then when we get to the organizing, we'll talk about both of those options and give you some options for paper or paperless. But the first thing you want to know about paper is you have to deal with it immediately. As you know, it's constantly coming into your home. We thought we would be a paperless society when we had all these computers and everyone has all this digital information, but we still have lots of paper. Paper is constantly coming into our home, and so we have to be ruthless and deal with it as it comes in. So I want to encourage you to have a command center, somewhere you can deal with paper. We're going to talk later about the things you need in that command center, but you want to have a space where you deal with paper. That might be your kitchen counter. It may be an office. It may be a desk in a room. Who knows where it's going to be. Some people like to do it as they're walking in their garage and throw it in their trash can. Whatever works for you, we're going to do that. But as you come in from the mailbox, immediately go through your mail. Is it trash? If it is trash, let's just go ahead and eliminate it. Let's not think too much about it. We don't need to think, is this coupon something I'm going to use? If it's something that you know you want used, get rid of it. If not, put a little more thought into it. But eliminate all the junk mail immediately. Go to the recycling bin, just get rid of it. Then you want to take the papers you are keeping that you need to go through. And you need to, I would say, process them every day. But if you maybe have a really busy week, at least process them once a week. And this is not everything that came from the mailbox. These are just the things you kept that you know you need to take care of. So we're going to talk about how to process those. But the first step I always like to touch on in paper management is to cut down on the amount that's coming in. So I'm going to post a couple of websites out there that are very helpful in helping you reduce the amount of paper that's coming into your mailbox, because we know how much junk we get. The first one is dmachoice.org. That's the Direct Marketing Association. You can be asked to be taken off the mailing list. All that junk mail that comes, you can be asked to be taken off, just like you would the do not call list. It's actually right there. You can sign up for that as well to get less clutter coming in. They're not going to be selling your name and sending you information. The next is catalogchoice.org. Catalogchoice.org will allow you to determine, do I want these catalogs or don't I? So when a catalog comes, you can decide, do I want that or not? And catalogs are one of those things that if you order one thing from someone, they're going to start sending you catalogs, whether it was a gift for someone, who knows what. I think they sell your name to other, mail order places as well. So catalogchoice.org, you can choose the ones you want to keep and you can choose the ones you don't want to keep. So the last thing that shuts down a lot of paper coming into your mailbox is the charitynavigator.org. I don't know about you, but I will give to one charity and then obviously they're selling my name. And I get little cute angel pins or gazillions of mailing return address labels. So many things that I really don't want them wasting the money for the charity on sending me this. So it makes me want to give less, actually. So at Charity Navigator, you can pick and choose which charities you want to hear from and cut down on some of that clutter that sometimes I see in my clients produces a lot of guilt. And it really shouldn't. They'll keep all of those and think, I need to give them something because they sent me a nickel or an angel pin or some return address labels. And that's not something we want to do. And I've even called those charities sometimes and said, I'll be glad to give you once a year if you'll send me one mailer a year. But don't send me something every month and waste your money. So I don't want my money to go towards a bunch of junk mail. But also when it comes to reducing the amount of paper, is some people will go paperless on your bank statements, on your credit card statements, things like that. So you can take the paperless option. Just make sure if you are taking the paperless option that you're going to be responsible with the emails coming in and managing those things and making sure the bills get paid and all of that. So that's how to reduce the amount coming in. Next, you're going to want to sort and purge. So I'm going to go through, I've kept some mail and some stuff to go through. We're going to go through my steps. So catalogs. Obviously, we talked about this a little bit more. I can look at this catalog and I can say, do I need anything from this company? If I do, great. I will keep it. I will look through it. Maybe I'll just look through it and after I see I don't need anything, throw it out. Or I might throw it out immediately. Or I might go to catalogchoice.org and say, please take me off this list. Next, magazines. Now, for some reason, I do not have a music business, but I got on the mailing list for this magazine. So magazines are a little more difficult. I did have to, right inside the magazine, there was an email address, and I just let them know I wanted to be taken off their list. But the magazines, pick and choose what you want. Again, it's good information coming in, but if it starts to back up and you're not reading them every month, maybe think about getting rid of some of your subscriptions. Or you might want to just come through it and see what articles you want, rip them out. And I like to put them in a file that says to read in my action files, which we're going to talk about those different filing systems. And next time I'm at the doctor's office or the DMV sitting and waiting, I take that file folder and I start reading through some of them. So The next thing is receipts. So you get a receipt. You need to decide, is this something I need to keep immediately as you walk in the door? If it's groceries, you're probably not going to return groceries, so just go ahead and throw it away. If it is something that you think you're going to return, we're going to have a file for our receipts in the action box, which we're going to talk about later. And so this receipt would go into the box because these are files that come and go. Papers come and go. Nothing stays there. And in a month, when I know I'm going to keep this, I can throw away the receipt. Or I might say, this is tax related. This is something I need to keep for my taxes. Maybe it's a business expense. Then I'm going to file it away for taxes. So next is when you pay the DMV. So you've paid for your car registration and you're done paying it. What you might want to do is throw this in a file with tax related stuff because part of this is tax deductible. So I just have a general tax file, and I know when it's time to prepare my 2020 taxes, I'll pull it out and use those materials to give to the CPA or whomever. The next is when you close on a property. Usually this is a big, thick document. This one is quite a small little thing, but you might want to hang on to it. So you might say, this is something that's going to go in my reference file. It might even go, if it's this big, thick packet that you get sometimes when you close on a house, throw it in your archive box because it just takes too much room. And honestly, you're probably never going to get to it. So that's going to be something we're going to cover in a little bit when we talk about the different filing systems. And then insurance. So you may have home insurance, car insurance. What you're going to want to do with that is, I like to keep a paper copy. Sometimes you'll get a digital copy, and that's fine too. I like to keep the digital copy as well because then if I go to rent a car, I have to have proof of my insurance. Somebody asked for it, I have it. But you may want to keep a paper copy in the file, and we're going to talk about labeling that. But I like general categories like insurance, home, insurance, auto, and that goes in there. Well, if you get one in the mail, you know you're going to be replacing one. So make sure you take the old one out and put the new one in. Next is a bill. So it's a bill I need to pay. So if you're paying by check, make sure you keep the little envelope that comes with it. If not, go ahead and ditch it. If you're going to be paying by online banking or credit card or something like that, you can get rid of the envelope. But this bill, you might want to pay it, and then you're going to decide, do I need to keep it? And really, what you're going to come down to is it tax related? If it's not tax related, you can pretty much ditch it if you're not going to need to refer to it again. Then you have bank statements. So your bank statement comes in. People will keep these for years and years and years. And honestly, you don't need to keep them at all. Most of them are online with your online banking, and you can access them anytime you want. But what I do when mine comes in is I take it and I balance my checkbook, and then I shred it. And you can do that. You can take a look at it and make sure the charges are correct. If you're not balancing your checkbook, whatever you want to do, but it's not something you need to hold on to, again, unless it's tax related. And you're going to hear that a lot today because really your paper is going to, anything that's tax related, don't get rid of. If you ever were to get audited, you're going to want all of that paper. However, if it's not tax related, if it doesn't have any kind of future use, go ahead and get rid of it. Then a credit card statement. So when I get a credit card statement in, what I like to do is match it with my receipts and attach them to it. That's because if it's a business expense, I'm going to need not only the bank credit card statement, I'm going to need all that backup, the receipts. So I'm going to keep those for my business. For my personal, I'm just going to look through it, make sure all the receipts were something that I actually made that charge and there were no incorrect charges, and then I'm going to shred it. No need to keep those long term. Okay, this is something that I see in almost every house. People come home from a conference and they have a bag because they always give you a bag, right? And that bag is full of a bunch of freebies, a lot of pens, some stress balls, some little gadgets that they got by going around to the booths. They're also full of conference material. Now that bag is usually, I will find multiple bags sitting all over the house. No one ever looks at it once they get it home. They don't even use the junk they picked up at the booths. So what I like to do is, first of all, not pick up a lot of junk at booths unless I really want it. And for the things that I get that I don't want, I, at the hotel, go ahead and get rid of them. I go through the conference material, getting rid of anything I'm not ever going to refer to again, keep some of my notes, and on the plane ride home, sometimes I'll organize those notes and condense them to what I really need. And that's when I come up with something like this. This is from a conference in March. So these are all of my notes. Now, have I referred to them since March? Only a time or two. But it is stuff that I really think I will need. And then some things I need to be working on. So I'll keep that in a file, and my file is kind of messy, but it has all kinds of things that for my business that I want to be working on. So I put it in there. Medical bills. Okay, when you come home from the doctor and you have a medical bill, what do you do with that medical bill? Most of the time, you don't need to do anything with it. If there's a diagnosis on it, you might want to record that, like on this date, I was diagnosed with this and this was the treatment, just for records when somebody asks, when were you diagnosed with that? But most of them, if they don't need to be turned into insurance or anything like that, aren't necessary. For instance, I have this file for my son's surgery that I have all of his medical bills because I did have to send them to the insurance and I needed them. So until that claim is paid, I'm going to keep this. But after that, I'm going to know the date he had surgery, which is good for medical history, but that's all I need. Maybe the doctor's name in case we ever need to reach him. This is a fun one. Kids' artwork. This was actually given to my husband yesterday from one of his cute little students. And it is so sweet, and I will probably keep it forever. But right now, I've posted it on the fridge because I want to be reminded of it. And I want my husband to be reminded of it. And he'll probably keep it in a place that he'll look at every once in a while just to be reminded of why he's doing what he's doing. But for our own children, I would bring their paperwork home from school and sort it. So obviously, if it's just scribbles or paperwork like from math or simple things from English, I would get rid of it. But if there was a really cute writing sample or some little art project with handprints or sweet little messages on them, I might hold on to those a little bit longer. And I would put them in a file for each school year. And maybe on the back, I would write a little reminder of what it was and why it was meaningful and maybe even the date. But I'm going to put those into a folder for each grade the children had. And then it comes up to just a box full of, K through 12. I don't think they had anything in college I got to keep, except for maybe some certificates or something. But I kept all of those and was able to present them with those when they moved out of the house. Now, I did not keep every little piece of paper they ever had because that's too much. That's too overwhelming. If I presented them with 25 boxes of paperwork with everything they ever did in school, that would be too much and they would probably take nothing. But this was an adequate amount, a writing sample here and there, a cute little art project, things they might want to share with their children, or at least look back and say, was my writing really that bad in third grade? So they have those. Next is recipes. So maybe you have recipe cards sitting around. Maybe you have recipe books everywhere. I like to condense those. And this could be a project for another day. For now, you might want to just put them all together. But I like to have all of my recipes on my computer. And they're organized by category, like desserts, spreads, meats, whatever. And when somebody comes over from dinner and says, I want that recipe, I'm able to just send it to them. I was also able to share that with all my adult children, one of their spouses, when they went off on their own and they had their own set of all of my recipes. You can scan them in, you can type them in, whatever you like. Now, I did keep a recipe card for each person in my family that gave me recipes, some of their favorite recipes. And I really treasure seeing their handwriting of my mother-in-law who's passed away and my grandmother, because that to me was very special and I wasn't willing to get rid of those cards. Even though I have them typed in, I also kept the cards. And this is the book where I put all the recipes. Hope you can see it. It has all the tabs for all the recipes. They're in clear plastic, so when I get stuff all over them. All of my recipes are in here. Now, the only 2 recipe books I kept were the basic Better Homes and Gardens one and the Southern Living one that have basic recipes that every once in a while I just refer to. But all the little ones, you find have one recipe here, one recipe there that you use every once in a while. Go ahead and either scan those in, type those in, but get rid of the big book. Go ahead and donate that. Let somebody else enjoy those recipes. So those are some of the paper you're going to go through, but it's really important to set up a system. So what I'm going to want you to do is go around your house and gather up every bit of paperwork you have. You don't have to take it out of the filing cabinet yet, but if you have piles of paper here, some stuck in a drawer here, pull it all out into one place. Get a space to work. You're going to want a box that says keep, one that says recycle, and one that says shred. So 3 boxes. I like to use banker's boxes, but something that size with a nice clear label. And you're going to set those 3 boxes in front of you. You're going to have a comfortable space to work. You're going to have your piles of paper you need to go through. And as you have that extra hour a day, 2 hours here and there, 15 minutes, go to your little station and start going through that paper. And you're going to quickly make decisions. The only thing you want to be very careful about is if it's tax related, as we've said. So make sure you are keeping only what you need. Whether it is paper or paperless system, you only want to keep what you need. You don't want to spend some time scanning in every single paper you own when you don't need to keep it, because then you're going to get clutter on your computer. So next, when you're sorting, you're going to need to decide your tax structure. Are you self-employed? Do you have any self-employment income like rental properties, anything like that? If so, you need to keep things for 7 years. If you have a very simple tax structure, you're probably just going to need to keep things for 3 years. Let's say you only get a W-2 at the end of the year and some, statements, simple things. You are not going to need to keep things as long as someone who has their own business or has rental properties. So determine that. You can ask your CPA if you have one. You can talk to a CPA if you don't have one and determine that. That's really important. And if you would, go ahead and share in the comments which you feel which category you fall into, just so I know how many people are 3 years and how many people are 7 years. But I'm going to also post out there a record retention guideline, and this is a great resource for you. A record retention guideline is a guideline, so don't take my word for it. You might want to ask your CPA, but it gives you an idea of how long you want to keep stuff. And it was developed by CPAs, so it probably tells you to keep more than you even need to, because honestly, you can pay a bill and shred it when you're done, and you don't have to hang on to it. But again, find where you're comfortable there, how long you want to keep things, and then use that as your guideline. So feel free to click through that link and get that document. It's a great one to have printed out when you're going through all this paperwork. So you're going to go through all those piles of paperwork. They're going to fall into one of those categories. As the recycling box gets full, make sure it's a small enough box you can handle. Go take it out to recycling and get rid of it. As it needs to be shredded, maybe you have a child or a grandchild that loves to shred, put them to it. Or I'd love to say we have a free shredding event coming up, but there aren't any during COVID. So we'll be sure to post those. If you subscribe to our newsletter on our website, we'll be sure to let you know when those free shred days are. However, in the meantime, Just, get rid of those papers as best you can. Some people burn them. Some people need a shredding service. Call us. We can help you with that as well. I think we have a question.
Yes. For a house that has been sold, how long do you keep the paperwork?
Okay, for a house that has been sold, how long do you keep the paperwork? If you ask a CPA, they're going to tell you forever. Now, I have sold quite a few houses in my time. We've moved a lot. I have not kept them. So again, just ask your CPA. I think as long as, as soon as you've sold it, it should be free and clear and done, but maybe hang on to it for the 3 years or the 7 years that you feel like you need to. And if you put it in an archive box, it's not going to take up valuable real estate. You could hang on to it a little bit longer. But again, ask your CPA just to make sure on cases like that. Or your realtor. Your realtor might know too. And they keep copies of everything. They have to. So you could always contact them for that. Good question. Thank you. So after you've gone through all your paper and that stack that you accumulated from a little bit of everywhere is sorted into these categories, you probably want to do the same thing for your file cabinet. So let's say at once you had a really nice filing system, but now you've kind of let it get behind. And so the stuff in the files are so old and all the paperwork that you've just sorted through is the more current. Go and clear out the filing cabinet. Take the, insurance papers from 1995 and make sure they're shredded. Go ahead and get rid of all of that. And then you're going to have room to incorporate those things in the keep box. And hopefully you will not come up with more than a box of keep, because if you're coming up with a lot of keep, really need to go back and question yourself. It's real easy when I'm going through paperwork with clients for them to say, oh, keep, because that's a safe decision, but they're really not making a good decision. So I, sometimes have to bring them back and say, why are we saying keep that? Let's think about this. Because everything you keep, you're going to have to set up a system for. And so that might be your motivation to keep less. So go to that filing cabinet and purge it and see what kind of system you have in place. Some people will have a perfectly good system in place. Some people will need to just start from scratch with a system. So we're going to talk about those options. So if, we talked about that pile of paper I came up with. If there are some things that you thought of that I didn't cover, go ahead and put that in the comments and I will come back to that and we'll talk about some of those things that I forgot. So we're going to talk about setting up your system. This is the organizing part. So we've got that keep box and we need to put it in a place where we can find it when we need it. This may be paper or it may be paperless. So let's talk about paper first. This is your physical filing system. So you have a couple of different categories. I like to have 4 different categories for paper. So you're going to have an action file. And I am going to post a picture of a wooden file box I get at Target that I use for all of my action files. They have it in white and they have it in wood. And I always tell clients it looks a lot better to have this box with organized files on it on your countertop or your desktop rather than a pile of paper. So your action file is going to replace your paper. So you're going to have action files in this box. They're going to be to pay, to read, to even consider, maybe receipts of items you might want to return. So they're going to have all action labels, things coming in, things coming out. You're going to need to check this box probably daily, but at least weekly. This is going to be something you're going to use all the time. And that's why we like to put it out. Because sometimes when we put things away, we forget about them. So putting them out will help you remember to take care of it. Remember to pay the bills. Go in there once a week and see what bills need to be paid. You might even go ahead and schedule them to be paid, and then you're done with it. The next part of the filing system are reference files. Now, these are things that you need to hang on to, but you will not refer to on a daily basis. This is what we consider maybe the files that go into your filing cabinet, the insurance documents, things like that you're going to need to get to. The next one is the archive. So archives are the ones we talked about, the old closing statements for the house. Things that you probably will never, ever, ever look at again. But this is your kind of in case of emergency, all of your old tax return backup. Now, I like to keep my tax returns in my file cabinet because sometimes I am asked to send a copy of that. And I want to keep those indefinitely. But the backup is the thing you can throw away every 3 or 7 years, depending on your tax structure. So I have, my file full of receipts and backup for 2019 taxes. And I'm going to write that on the folder. And I'm just going to rubber band it and throw it in this box. And I know when I do 2020 taxes, I go and I take out the oldest file and get rid of it and shred it and put the new in. So it's rotating in and out of this box. I get to this box once a year. The only reason you're keeping these archive files is if you get audited or if you ever needed access to something like that sale document for the home or the purchase document for the home. So that's what you're going to keep in your archive. This can just be a banker's box thrown in the garage, on a closet shelf, somewhere out of the way that you're going to get to maybe once a year. It doesn't need to be accessible. Lastly, you're going to have things that probably need to be in a safe deposit box or a safe. So you can get a small safe at home, you can get a safe deposit box. These are things like your passports, birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, anything that is official you would want to protect from a fire. So make sure your box is fireproof and safe, and those papers can go in there. So you have your 4 systems: action files, reference files, archive files, and things that go in the safe. And so those are going to be your different categories. So as you're sorting through that paper, and I know they say only touch paper once, but I just think that's almost impossible and not really as efficient as this system. So you're going to take your keep and you're going to break them up into those categories. So things that are archived can just be kind of thrown in the box and quickly labeled. Things that are in the safe, I like to put them by person, but you can organize them however you want. It's not that important. Your reference files, I like to have a manila file inside of a hanging file. That's just my personal preference, and I like to have both labeled. So let's say I have insurance/auto. I'm going to put that on a tab on the hanging file as well as on the manila file right here. And that way when I take this manila file out, I know where it goes back. And so it keeps the system organized. And I know it seems a little over the top, but most of us need a little bit extra help in staying organized, and that helps us maintain that. You can do your labels however you like. I like to do general labels. So I want to label it insurance home, insurance auto. That way I look under I for insurance because it's alphabetical, of course. You may say, I want to do home insurance. Think about where you would go to look for it. What I encourage you not to do is to label it State Farm Insurance, because what if you change to a different insurance company? You've now got to relabel your file. You've got to look for it in a different place. So I like general categories that are going to make it easy to find, but think about what you're going to call it. And if you need any help with that, I'll be glad to help. I have some documents that can help you there. So that's your reference file system is going to be set up like that. You can also use this in your action file box, but your action file box is going to be something you get to every day or week. Your reference files are just when you need a document. You can go lay your hands on it. Now let's talk about paperless. Paperless is very much the same in that you're still going to want file folders. You're just going to want them on your computer. So let's say you have your filing system on your computer. You're going to have folders, and if you don't know how to set up a folder, you can always ask me. I'll be glad to help you walk you through that. But you can set up a new folder. So you're going to have your files, and then under that, you're going to set up folders. And you may even have an insurance folder with under it auto, home, life, whatever you need there. You're going to have categories in file folders. Now, the important thing with paperless is some people just start scanning away, and it's still chaos. They would never find anything on their computer. It's all scanned in somewhere, but it's not labeled, it's not in folders. So you want your system on your computer to be just as organized with all those folders. And you're going to want to, when a new document comes in, just like you would go to your file and take the paper out and shred it, you're going to want to delete it. So let's delete the old insurance file and put the new current one in its place, or save as, whatever is easiest for you. But don't let your system on your computer become as cluttered as your paper system. You still want to be able to find things when you're looking for them. And by having all those folders, you can easily do that. And you're going to need a scanner, a good scanner. Again, not scanning everything, just the things that are important to you. Most printers these days have scanners. There's also scanning apps on your phone that a lot of people enjoy using, but get all of those papers in there. So we are going to start opening up for questions. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them. Things I didn't cover that you felt like I needed to, maybe missed. There are always things I forget, so don't hesitate to share those. And then also, I'm going to talk about a few things coming back up. We are going to continue to broadcast this, so even if you're not live, feel free to ask those questions. We'll be checking in from time to time and answering those. And you can always call us or email us to get an immediate answer. And I welcome the calls. Don't worry about that at all. Our number is 909-307-4862. Comes directly to me. I don't mind taking your calls and answering questions. I would rather you not struggle with things if I can offer a quick solution, a practical solution. So next week, we're going to do at the same time, every Tuesday in August, we're going to be doing our Facebook Live. Next week is Simplify Your Move. So that's going to be on the 18th at 10 o'clock. Whether you are moving or have ever moved or ever plan to move or not moving, it's a good one for you to watch because I used to move a lot. Early on in my marriage, we moved a lot and it kept me organized. Well, I realized when I got comfortable and staying in the same house for a long time, I wasn't going through things like I did when I moved. So you might want to pretend you're moving, because whether you're downsizing or not, I always encourage people to go through and get rid of things you no longer need. I've had people moving into a house double the size, but we still do downsizing prior to the pack because there's no need for them to move a bunch of things that they don't need, clothes that don't fit, things they didn't even know they had. So it's good to go through those and go ahead and get rid of them before you move. No matter what the size of your move, you're going to save a ton of money on moving. We even have corporations pay us to downsize people because they will save so much on the cost of moving and the weight and all of that. But we're going to talk to you about moving, how to save money, how to do it efficiently with less stress. We'll share a lot of the techniques we use in our service we provide. Then the final week of August, which is the 23rd, I don't think that's right. Sorry, the 25th, I think. We're going to do Simplify Your Time. And Simplify Your Time is going to be something that I believe is very timely these days because with Corona, we have cut back a lot of our activities. And I don't think there's some stuff we've missed. There may be some that we have. We're going to talk about how to, as we go back and the world begins to reopen, introduce the things that are meaningful to us, but not everything. And maybe have a little bit more time in our day to do the things we've done during this time of COVID. We've had more family meals together. We've had more time together as a family, maybe even time with friends. I know that's been a little funny to do, but so many things have developed during this time that I think we can learn from. So we're going to talk about how COVID will change how you spend time in the future. So also in the comments below, please share with me other subjects you're going to want to hear about. So we're going to try to at least go live monthly and talk about different things you want to hear about. So maybe you want to hear about kitchen organization. Maybe you want to hear a little more detail about dealing with keepsakes, children's paperwork, things like that. We're going to talk about those things in a little more detail so that you can really grasp those and get through some of the things in your home that you're struggling with. But again, at any point, I appreciate you coming and joining us today. We actually have some questions. Good. What are our questions?
We have a couple people asking about how do you store a large number of photos?
Oh, that's one of the things we're going to actually cover in one of these extra talks, because photos is really its own category. It can take a lot of time. So I'll make sure I put that on the list. But as you're going through photos, you want to use some of the same techniques we learned today, and that would be to only keep what you need. If you don't know who in the world that is, what in the world that is, you have 5 copies of somebody's elbow, it's okay to get rid of those pictures. You can purge pictures and keep the ones that are important to you. You may want to keep them in a file box, like a photo box that's acid free. That's a great way, takes up less space, and then the person can do whatever they want with the photos. I give my kids each a box, and they can do what they want with them. If they want to scrapbook them, great, they can do that. But I didn't choose to. Also talk about digitizing pictures, and that's a huge project, but something that is very meaningful. My brother did that for us, and it has been so meaningful to have all those family pictures. You can distribute it to each person. So we'll talk about some of those things in more detail. But as you start going through photos, just start purging, then maybe categorizing who they're for, as you want to give them away, or as you want to store them, what categories they are, maybe a vacation. And you can have in those photo boxes the little tabs that help you divide out your photos. So that's a good way to store your photos if you don't want to spend the time scrapbooking everything or digitizing them. And they can be digitized once they're organized, because you really don't want to digitize them when they're not organized. So that's a good first step, but we'll talk about that more later. Thanks for bringing that up. Another question.
Where do you keep the files on your computer?
Oh, where do you keep the files on your computer? You should have a place where documents are stored, maybe where your Word documents are stored. I'm not a super duper computer person, but I do have folders for things like photos. So you'll have a pictures file, you'll have a documents file. This would be a totally separate one I would start that says your filing system, a whole new category for filing system. And under that, you're going to have all of your folders. So again, depending on your computer, you can set up a different section for those. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope we'll see you the next 2 Tuesdays. And after that, feel free to go on our website at psorganizing.com and subscribe to our newsletter. That's always how we communicate with you and let you know what we're doing. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us so that you can get all this information coming to you. And we appreciate you always sharing this with someone you think would enjoy it. Thanks, and have a great day.